My father told me he was proud of me in the parking lot of a Marriott, not in a stadium after a big win, not at graduation with cameras and balloons, not even at my wedding. In a half-empty parking lot behind a 3-star hotel off the interstate, with a flickering streetlight and a fast food wrapper tumbling across the asphalt. "Good job tonight, kid," he said, stuffing his hands into his jacket pockets. "I'm proud of you." He didn't look at me when he said it. He stared out over the row of cars like he was talking to the air. It was after a conference, my very first keynote speech. I just talked for 40 minutes about resilience and burnout to 300 HR people and managers who'd paid real money to hear me speak. They'd laughed at my jokes. They'd lined up to shake my hand. A woman had cried and told me I'd put words to something she'd been carrying for years. My inbox buzzed with LinkedIn requests and invitations for coffee. But that sentence, in that ugly parking lot, was the only feedback that mattered to 12-year-old me, the one who still lived under my skin. "I'm proud of you." I'd spent half my life imagining what it would feel like fireworks, like the movie version, where violins swell and the camera circles around as father and daughter hug in slow motion. Instead, my first thought was, "Say it again. Say it again so I know I didn't make it up." "Thanks," I managed, my voice too small for the woman who'd just owned a stage. We stood there awkwardly, the way we always did when it was just us and no project to work on, no game to watch, no task to complete. He rocked back on his heels. "You looked like you knew what you were doing up there," he added. "Didn't think people paid for that kind of thing." He said that kind of thing, like it was a magic trick you buy on TV at 2 a.m. "It's called speaking, Dad," I said, trying to joke. "It's my job." He nodded once. "Guess it is," he said. The cold night air stung my cheeks. I could still feel the stage lights behind my eyes, still hear the faint echo of applause. But under all of that was something else, something shakier. A tiny, terrified hope. "He's finally proud of you. You did it. You finally became someone he can say it to." He cleared his throat. "Your mother wanted me to take a picture of you with that plaque thing," he said, pulling his phone from his pocket like it offended him. "You should stand over there by the light." I laughed under my breath. "I'm 32, Dad, not 12, I said. He shrugged. "Doesn't matter how old you are," he replied. "Firsts go in the album." So I stood under the flickering parking lot light, holding my glass rectangle award, Outstanding Keynote Speaker, and let him take my picture. "Smile," he muttered, squinting at the screen. I did, not because of the award, because of the sentence that was still buzzing in my ears. "I'm proud of you." We got in his truck to head back to my parents' house. He drove, both hands on the wheel, the radio turned low to some oldies station. I watched his profile in the dash lights, the same nose as mine, the same furrow between the eyebrows when he focused. I wondered if he knew what he'd just given me, if he understood that for 28 years, those 4 words had been the missing piece in every memory. Part of me wanted to ask him, why now? Why this? Why tonight and not any of the other nights? But I didn't. I was afraid he'd shrug and say, "What are you talking about? I've always been proud of you," and the fragile specialness of the moment would crash. So I just said, "Thanks for coming, by the way. I know this wasn't really your thing." He snorted. "Hey," he said, "you were on a stage. There was a microphone. That's close enough to a game for me." I smiled and rested my head against the cold window, letting the hum of the tires on the highway lull me into a daze. Out there in the dark, my life felt briefly linear. Awkward kid. Overachieving student. Burned out young professional. Therapist. Speaker. And now, finally, daughter whose father was proud. I fell asleep that night in my childhood bedroom with a stupid grin on my face, my keynote badge still on the nightstand, my phone buzzing with congratulations. I kept replaying it. The parking lot. The way he'd said it rough, like the words weren't used to being formed. The way he'd looked everywhere but at me. I'm proud of you. I think I must have whispered it 15 times to myself in the dark, just to hear how it sounded in the air. 3 days later, at my parents' kitchen table, he took it back. Not metaphorically. Not in some subtle, I didn't mean it that way walk back. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, I shouldn't have said I was proud of you. I got caught up in the moment. And it was like someone had reached inside my chest, found the brand new thing I'd been cradling, and smashed it on the floor. Before you judge him, before you decide my father is a monster and you would never do what he did, you should know something. He didn't grow up hearing, I'm proud of you either. He grew up in a small Midwestern town where fathers shook hands with their sons when they left for college, if they left at all. Where feelings were things you fixed alone in the garage with a wrench and an AM radio, not things you named out loud. His father, my grandfather, was a man of few words and fewer compliments. Could have been better, was basically his love language. My dad played football in high school. He was good. Not star quarterback good, but solid lineman good. He had a box of clippings in the attic, grainy black and white photos of him with his helmet off, hair sweaty, grin wide as the field. In the one picture he ever showed me voluntarily, he's holding a trophy, his team clustered around him. Everyone looks ecstatic, like they've swallowed the sun. What did Grandpa say? I'd asked him, 8 years old, sitting cross-legged on the attic floor. He'd shrugged. Said, try not to break anything on the way home, Dad answered. That was his version of good job. Did he ever say he was proud of you? I asked. He'd paused, squinting at the photo like the answer might be hidden in the pixels. Not in so many words, he said. That phrase, not in so many words, was one he used a lot. Grandpa didn't say, I love you. Not in so many words. Grandma didn't apologize. Not in so many words. We lived in a house where feelings were like contraband. Everyone knew they existed, but they were always smuggled under something else. In our family, my father was the gravity everything orbited around. He worked 6 days a week at the factory. He fixed cars for neighbors in his spare time. He grilled on Sundays, mowed the lawn in straight lines, and believed in 3 things: hard work, not making excuses, not getting too big ahead. Praise, in that system, was dangerous. It made you soft, lazy, full of yourself. So instead of saying, I'm proud of you, my dad said things like, not bad. Next time, try for A+. Don't let it go to your head. In 3rd grade, I brought home a certificate for outstanding achievement in reading. Mom stuck it on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a cow. You're my little bookworm, she said, kissing my hair. Dad glanced at it on his way to the pantry. You get a prize for reading now, he muttered. Back in my day, you just read. He wasn't being cruel. Not on purpose. He honestly thought he was keeping me grounded. Middle school, I made the honor roll every semester. He didn't come to the assemblies. He was busy or working. Mom would record them on her phone and show him later. He'd watch for a few seconds, see me walk across the stage in a row of other kids, and nod. Looks like you've got it handled, he'd say. Just remember, real life doesn't hand out certificates. In high school, I joined varsity softball. He came to the first game. I still remember scanning the bleachers for him, my heart climbing into my throat when I saw him, arms folded, hat pulled low. I played like my life depended on it. 2 hits. one diving catch. We won by 3. Afterward, sweaty and grinning, I jogged over. So? I asked, hands on my hips, cleats biting into the dirt. What'd you think? He shrugged. You almost missed that catch in the 3rd, he said. Gotta watch your footing. I deflated. Yeah, I said. I know. He slapped my shoulder. Good hustle, though, he added, like an afterthought. Good hustle was the closest I got to, you were amazing. It wasn't that he never showed love. He did. He taught me how to change a tire and check the oil. He made my Halloween costumes from scratch when we couldn't afford the fancy ones. When I was sick, he'd leave a glass of Gatorade by my bed before work, lid off, so I didn't have to fight with it. His love was in the doing, not the saying. But as a kid, I didn't know how to translate that. All I knew was that other dads in TV shows and books said things mine never did. All I knew was that I could get a 98 and he'd say, "Where'd the other 2 points go?" By the time I hit 16, I'd internalized the pattern. If I was almost perfect, I'd get almost praise. If I wanted the real thing, I'd have to be more. More successful. More impressive. More anything. So I stacked my achievements like sandbags against a flood I couldn't name. AP classes, honor society, volunteer hours, part-time job. My guidance counselor said I was a dream student. Dad said, I just don't want you thinking you're better than everyone else. When college applications came around, we fought. He wanted me to go to the local state school and live at home. Why would you pay more for the same piece of paper? He asked. I wanted to go to a university 3 hours away with a great psychology program. It's not the same, I argued. They have research opportunities, professors who publish papers. It's a different world. He snorted. World's the same wherever you go, he said. You work, you pay bills, college is just a detour. Mom tried to mediate. She got in, Mark, she said quietly. It's a big deal. He looked at the acceptance letter on the table like it had insulted him. We're not made of money, he replied. Loans follow you. So do regrets, I said before I could stop myself. His eyes flashed. What did you say? He asked. I swallowed. I said I'll work, I replied. I'll get scholarships. I'll do whatever I have to. I need to go. There it was. Need. He hated that word. People need food and roofs, he said. College is a luxury. He'd said yes, eventually. Not because he understood, but because Mom wore him down and the financial aid letter was better than he expected. Don't expect a parade, he'd said the day we packed the car. You made the choice, you live with it. I'd looked around at our small house, at the sag in the living room couch, at the stains on the carpet from my brother's spill years ago. I'm trying to live with more than this, I'd thought. Not in a snobby way. In a terrified of repeating their lives without meaning to way. When he'd hugged me goodbye in the dorm parking lot, it was awkward and brief. Don't screw it up, he'd said. I remember thinking, he means I care, and wanting something more precise than translation. I didn't get it. Not then. Not when I graduated. Not when I got my master's degree. Not when I opened my own small therapy practice. Plenty of congratulations. A few, nice work. No, I'm proud of you. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter. I told my clients, week after week, that their worth didn't depend on their parents' words. I looked them in the eye and said, sometimes you have to give yourself the validation you never got. But at night, lying in bed with the glow of my phone screen on my face, anytime Dad texted, I'll try to come to your talk. What time is that thing again? My stomach flipped like I was 13 and waiting for him to show up to a game. So when he said it in that parking lot, after my keynote, my entire nervous system lit up like a slot machine that had finally lined up 3 cherries. I'm proud of you. Jackpot. I didn't know there was still one more spin coming. I didn't know that 3 days later, my winnings would be revoked. People who grew up with emotionally available dads will never understand the joy of getting a 3-word text that just says, "Nice job today." No emoji. No exclamation mark. No details. Just the fact that he saw something, took out his phone, and typed. When you grow up in almost, scraps feel like feasts. I became a therapist because of a professor in my sophomore year of college. Intro Psych. Big lecture hall. I sat in the middle, near the aisle. One day she said, "Most of us walk around carrying invisible stories given to us by our families. If we don't look at them, we end up repeating them." It was like she'd turned the lights on in my brain. Invisible stories. Mine were things like, real work involves your hands and your back. Talking about feelings is complaining. If you're not exhausted, you didn't do enough. Don't get too proud. Life will bring you down. I started reading everything I could about family systems, attachment, intergenerational trauma. It was like discovering the instruction manual for a machine I'd been trapped inside my whole life. I told Dad I was going to major in psychology over Thanksgiving break. He was carving the turkey, the electric knife whining. "What do you even do with that?" he asked. "You can go to grad school," I said. "Be a therapist. Work in hospitals, schools." He snorted. "So people pay you to listen to them whine?" he asked. I gripped my fork under the table. "It's more complicated than that," I said. "Seems like a scam," he muttered. Mom swatted his arm. "Mark," she said quietly, "knock it off. She's excited." He held up his hands. "Hey, if someone wants to pay you to talk, go for it," he said. "Just don't move back in here when it doesn't work out." He smiled like it was a joke, but my chest hurt. I interned at crisis hotlines and community clinics. I watched people break and put themselves back together. I learned how to sit in pain without flinching. Dad kept asking me the same question. "When are you getting a real job?" When I got my master's, he drove 4 hours to watch me walk across another stage. He wore a collared shirt and the same worn boots he'd had for a decade. Afterward, in the chaos of the lawn, with everyone tossing caps and hugging, he handed me a card. Inside, in his blocky handwriting, "Knew you could, Dad." I stared at it like it might change if I blinked. It didn't say proud, but "knew you could" was something. Then I opened my practice. It was small, a rented office on the 2nd floor of a brick building that used to be a dentist's. One waiting room with mismatched chairs, one office with a soft lamp and a big plant that I kept almost killing and reviving. The day the sign went up, Claire Hayes, LCSW, Mom cried. Dad grunted. "Guess this is official," he said. "It is," I replied, a little breathless. "This is my own business." He raised an eyebrow. "Business, huh?" he said. "Hope you've got malpractice insurance." I laughed weakly. "Thanks for the vote of confidence," I said. He shrugged. "Just being realistic," he replied. Realistic was his favorite disguise for fear. The first year, money was tight. I saw clients, did my own billing, tried not to panic every time the internet bill came due. But slowly, the calendar filled. Word spread. I added a second couch. Then a regional HR group asked me to do a workshop on burnout. I made slides. I sweated through my blazer. It went fine. A year later, someone recommended me to a conference organizer. "We want something on mental health in the workplace," she said. "But," not boring. We want real, human. I agreed before I could talk myself out of it. That keynote turned into more keynotes, which led to a side business, corporate speaking. To my father, that was the weirdest part. So they pay you to talk, he repeated, brow furrowed. Yes, I said, they pay well. He shook his head, half impressed, half annoyed at a world that rewarded skills he didn't understand. World's gone soft, he said. Back in my day, no one cared how you felt at work. I smiled. Back in your day, no one talked about panic attacks or burnout either, I said. Now they do. He didn't respond. So when I told him about the big conference, the Marriott, the 300 people, the plaque, he just grunted. Your mother's excited, he'd said. She bought a new dress. And you? I'd asked. He'd shrugged. I'll be there, he said, which, in dad language, was monumental. He'd be there. I'd pictured him in the audience, arms folded, expression stone but eyes soft. I'd pictured saying something that made him laugh. I'd pictured walking off stage and seeing him nod once, the way he did when he watched me fix something correctly. What I hadn't pictured was the parking lot after, the way he'd shoved his hands in his pockets, eyes on the horizon, and said the 4 words that had been missing my whole life. I'm proud of you. It felt like retroactive approval. Like somewhere, a ledger was being updated. Not the wrong degree. Not a fake job. Not a waste of loans. Valid. Real. Good. For 3 days, I walked around with that new entry in my chest. Then came the podcast. And the episode. And the sentence that made my father feel like I'd betrayed him first. I host a small podcast. Nothing huge. A few thousand downloads an episode, mostly people in HR or helping professions. I talk about burnout, boundaries, family dynamics. Sometimes I share stories from my own life, lightly disguised. Isn't that airing dirty laundry? Dad asked once when Mom mentioned it on the phone. It's teaching, I replied. People relate when they hear real examples. He didn't like it. In his world, you didn't air anything. You shut the door and dealt with it yourself. 3 days after the keynote, I posted a new episode. Title, Growing Up in Almost When I'm Proud of You Never Comes. I didn't use names. I didn't say my father more than once. I talked about clients, patterns, how kids internalize good but not good enough. Near the end, I said, sometimes, if you're lucky, a parent finally says the words, I'm proud of you, and it feels amazing. But if that inner script hasn't changed, if you still believe you're one mistake away from losing it, those words can feel fragile, like they can be taken back. I thought it was a good episode. Honest. Useful. Apparently, so did my listeners. Wow, this hit me in the gut, one wrote. Thank you for putting words to this, another said. What I didn't think about, not really, was my mother listening. And then, my father. When I walked into their kitchen that Sunday, the air felt off. Mom was at the stove, stirring something with more force than necessary. Dad was at the table with the paper, but he wasn't really reading it. Hey, I said, dropping my bag. Smells good in here. No answer. Everything okay? I asked. Mom set the spoon down with a clatter. Did you think we wouldn't hear it? She asked, not turning around. My stomach sank. Hear what? I tried. Dad folded the paper with military precision. Your program, he said. Your little radio show. I exhaled. It's a podcast, I said. And it's not little. Wrong move. His eyes flashed. Oh, excuse me, he said. Didn't realize you were famous. Mom turned, lips pressed tight. You talked about us, she said. About your father. To strangers. I felt heat rise in my neck. I didn't use your names, I said. No one knows it's you. Dad snorted. We know it's us, he said. That's enough. I pulled out a chair. Can we sit down and talk about this? I asked. Not if you're just going to tell us how we failed as parents, he said. The word failed stung. I didn't say that, I replied. He tapped the table. You said we never told you we were proud of you, he said. That we almost everything, like we're some kind of emotional deadbeats. His voice made the words sound like a crime. I took a breath. I said that growing up, I didn't hear those words, I said. That's true. It's not an accusation. It's my experience. Mom's eyes filled with tears. You make us sound like monsters, she whispered. Like we didn't love you. I shook my head. I said in the episode that you loved me, I replied. That you showed it in actions. But you have to admit, words weren't a thing in this house. Dad's jaw clenched. Did you ever consider talking to us first, he asked, before you told the world your sob story? Something snapped inside me. My sob story? I repeated. Dad, I didn't name you. I talked about how it felt to grow up wishing I'd hear something and not hearing it. That's it. He pushed back his chair. You know what I hear now? He said. I hear that nothing we did was good enough. That you went and got your fancy degree and now we're just case studies to you. That's not fair, I said. I talk about my stuff because it helps people. I talk about it because I've worked on it. I've forgiven a lot. Forgiven? He repeated. Forgiven what? I hesitated. This, I said. The way criticism was easy, but praise was rare. The way you made me feel small every time I was excited. The way... You're remembering it wrong, he cut in. He always said that when I brought up anything that made him uncomfortable. You're being dramatic. It wasn't that bad. You're exaggerating. Am I? I asked softly. Do you remember ever saying you were proud of me before last week? The question hung in the room. Mom looked at him. He stared at me. You knew we were proud, he said finally. That's not what I asked, I replied. Did you ever say it? Silence. He looked away. Just because I didn't say it the way you wanted? So that's a no, I said. His eyes snapped back to mine. Don't put words in my mouth, he snarled. I'm not, I said. I'm asking for clarity. He stood up. Clarity, he repeated, mocking. Is that what they teach you in therapy school? How to blame your parents for everything? I felt my hands shake. This isn't about blame, I said. It's about owning what happened. He laughed sharply. You know, after that speech, I thought maybe I was wrong about your job, he said. Thought maybe this wasn't just talking in circles. I even told you I was proud of you. There it was. I felt my heart speed up. And I appreciated that, I said quietly. He shook his head. I shouldn't have, he said. The room tilted. What? I whispered. I got caught up in the moment, he went on. Everyone clapping, your mother all misty-eyed. I said what I thought you wanted to hear. My chest constricted. Are you saying you didn't mean it? I asked. He met my eyes, and for a second I saw something hurt, fear, flash behind his anger. Then it was gone. I'm saying, he replied, that it's hard to be proud of someone who thinks you're the villain in their little radio drama. It was like the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Mom gasped. Mark, she said, that's not. I barely heard her. Hard to be proud of someone. The words echoed, obliterating the rest. I stood up slowly. So, you're taking it back, I said, the other night, the parking lot. You're taking it back because I talked about my childhood in a 20-minute podcast episode. He crossed his arms. I'm saying it clearly bothers you more than it should, he said. If you were really over it like you tell your clients, you wouldn't be making shows about it. I let out a small, disbelieving laugh. You think I'm healed or I'm ungrateful, I said. No in between. He didn't respond. Mom stepped between us. Stop it, she said. Both of you. This is getting ugly. I looked at her, then back at him. You don't have to be perfect for me to love you, I said. But you don't get to rewrite my reality just because it makes you uncomfortable. His eyes narrowed. And you don't get to use us for content, he shot back. There was so much I could have said. About informed consent. About confidentiality. About how writers and therapists had been mining their own lives for centuries, turning pain into something useful. Instead, I said the thing that had been sitting in my throat since he'd opened his mouth. I didn't make you the villain, I said. You just don't like seeing yourself clearly. He flinched. For a second, just a second, I thought he might actually cry. Instead, he grabbed his keys. I'm going to the shop, he said. He walked out. The back door slammed. The fridge hummed. Mom put a hand to her forehead. Why did you have to say all that on the internet? She whispered. Because it's my story too, I replied, my voice breaking. Because other people need to hear it. She looked at me, torn. And what about us? She asked. Do we get to heal in private? Or do we just become episodes? The question sliced through my defenses. I never meant to hurt you, I said. Either of you. I know, she replied. But you did. I swallowed. So did he, I said. She closed her eyes. I know that too, she whispered. That night, alone in my apartment, I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling. In my headphones, I listened to my own voice talk about pride and almost and healing. I sounded calm, wise even. I wanted to reach through the audio and grab that version of me by the shoulders. Don't use the word fragile, I wanted to say. Don't tempt fate. Because now I knew. Those 4 words I'd waited my whole life to hear could be rescinded. Like a paycheck voided. Like a trophy taken back. I'm proud of you. Just kidding. When therapists complain about their parents, we always start with the same sentence. I know better, but I still spiral. I know better, but it still hurts. I know better, but theory isn't the same as sitting at your childhood kitchen table while your father says he regrets being proud of you. My own therapist, Maya, had heard about my dad long before the parking lot moment. She knew about the trophies that never got comments, the degrees that got critiques, the clients I let get away with talking down to me because their tone felt familiar. So when I sat on her couch the week after the kitchen fight, tissues balled in my hands, she didn't say, "Wow, he sounds horrible." She said, "That must have landed right where 12-year-old you lives." I laughed through my tears. That's the problem, I said. I've built this whole life practice, speeches, podcast on understanding this stuff. And there I was in his kitchen arguing like I'm 15 again. She tilted her head. How old did you feel when he said he shouldn't have told you he was proud? She asked. Honestly, I said, 8. What did 8-year-old Claire need back then? She asked. I wiped my nose. To hear it, I said, just once, without qualifiers, without but or don't let it go to your head. And what did 32-year-old Claire need in that kitchen? She asked. I stared at the floor. For him to not weaponize it, I said. For him to not make pride contingent on me never talking about my experience. We sat in silence for a moment. That's an important distinction, she said. Not just tell me you're proud, but don't use it as leverage later. I nodded. It felt like a bargain, I said. Like, I'll give you this thing if you don't tell the truth about me. What does that sound like to you? She asked. Emotional blackmail, I said immediately. She smiled sadly. Would you ever say to a client, your father took back his praise because you told your story, and that's understandable? She asked. I shook my head. Never, I said. I'd say, that's manipulative and unfair. So why is it different when it's you? She asked gently. Because it's me, I said, voice cracking. Because it's my dad. There it was. The exception clause. Other people's parents were allowed to be flawed, harmful, wrong. Mine were complicated, doing their best, trying. Maya leaned forward. What would it mean, she asked, to let your father be both? Someone who loves you and someone who did something cruel? The word made me flinch. Cruel? I repeated. Yes, she said. Cruel. Taking back, I'm proud of you. To punish you for telling your truth is cruel. Even if he's scared, even if he feels exposed, both can be true. I stared at my hands. If I admit that, I said slowly, I have to. Stop giving him passes for everything. She nodded. And what scares you about that? She asked. I swallowed. That he'll leave, I said. That he'll decide I'm too much work and just check out. Has he ever threatened to cut you off? She asked. No, I said. He just pouts and leaves the room for a while. Goes to the shop. Turns on the game. So where does that fear come from? She asked. I thought about all the times as a kid when his silence felt like the worst punishment. How mad is too mad? I'd asked Mom once. What do you mean? She'd said. How mad can I make him before he stops liking me? I'd clarified. She'd looked horrified. That's not how it works, she'd said. He loves you. He just doesn't know how to say it. Now, sitting on Maya's couch, the memory made my chest ache. I guess I don't trust that love and approval are separate, I said. It feels like if he's not proud, he doesn't love me. Maya let that hang in the air. What if that's the story you grew up with? She said, but not the truth. I sighed. Then I have a lot of rewiring to do, I said. She smiled. Welcome to the club, she said. At home, I did what I tell my own clients to do when something shatters. I wrote, I opened a blank document and titled it, Things I Know Are True Even If Dad Disagrees. I typed, I am good at my job. The keynote went well whether or not he understood it. People find my podcast helpful. My childhood experience is real, even if he remembers it differently. Sharing my story is not a betrayal. Then I wrote a second list. Things that hurt. He said he was proud. I believed him. He took it back to punish me. Part of me still thinks this is my fault. I stared at that last line for a long time. Where did that come from? From years of don't provoke him, of tiptoeing, of Mom saying he's just stressed when he snapped. I added one more line. I was a kid. None of this was my job to manage. I printed the lists and taped them inside my closet door. Not for anyone else. For the part of me that still believed love had to be earned and could be revoked. Mom called a few days later. How are you? She asked, in the tone that meant, how mad are you still? I'm processing, I said. She exhaled. He is too, she said. I hesitated. Does he regret what he said? I asked. Silence. I think he regrets the fight, she said, and the podcast, and the whole thing. That's not the same as regretting the words, I said. I know, she replied quietly. We sat with that. You know he's proud of you, she said after a moment. There it was again. You know, I closed my eyes. Mom, I said, I need you to stop saying that if he's not willing to say it himself. She went quiet. What do you mean? She asked. I mean, I'm done translating, I said. If he's proud, he can say it. If he can't, that's on him. I'm tired of doing emotional subtitles. She let out a shaky little laugh. Emotional subtitles, she repeated. That's exactly what I've been doing for 35 years. I blinked. You too? I asked. Of course, she said. You think he learned that, not in so many words, stuff from nowhere? We both laughed, sad and soft. Do you want me to talk to him? She asked. About what? I said. About your daughter's hurt feelings? He'll say I'm being dramatic. About the fact that he can't dangle pride like a treat, she said, surprising me. That was wrong. I swallowed. You think it was wrong? I asked. Yes, she said firmly. I think it was. I understand why he felt exposed by your podcast. But taking that out on you? No, that's not okay. I felt something unclench in my chest. Thank you, I whispered. For what? She asked. For not minimizing it, I said, for once. She sighed. I'm trying to learn, she said, like you always talk about. Patterns, cycles, all of that. I smiled. Guess my little radio show is good for something, I said. She laughed. Don't tell your father I said that, she replied. It was 6 months before I saw him again. Not out of some grand plan. Life just happened. He had extra shifts. I had conferences. We texted about the weather, my car needing an oil change, the game. We did not talk about the parking lot or the kitchen. Mom sent me updates in pieces. He's listening to your older episodes, she said once, quietly, in the garage. Another time, he asked me what burnout actually feels like. Little cracks in the concrete. In December, he slipped on the ice getting out of his truck and fractured his wrist. It wasn't catastrophic, but it shook him. I'm getting old, he said on the phone, trying to joke. You got old years ago, I replied. The wrist just got the memo. He snorted. Funny, he said. I drove down for Christmas. The house smelled like cinnamon and roast. My childhood stocking was still hung on the mantel. Dad's wrist was in a brace. Look who decided to show up, he said when I walked in, like I hadn't told him 3 times I was coming. I nodded at the brace. Look who finally got a battle scar that isn't from work, I said. He smirked. We navigated the day like a room full of fragile ornaments, careful not to bump anything too hard. After dinner, while Mom and my brother watched a movie in the living room, he wandered into the garage. Old habit. I followed. He was standing by the workbench, staring at a shelf of half-used paint cans. The radio was on low. For a minute, we just stood there, the way we used to when I was a kid handing him tools. So, he said eventually, you still talking into that microphone of yours? I smiled. Yes, I said, still talking. He nodded. People still listen? He asked. More of them now, I said. He grunted. Figures, he said. Silence. I listened to that one, he added. The almost one. My pulse quickened. Yeah, I said. He nodded. You weren't wrong, he said. I blinked. That's not what you said in the kitchen, I replied. He exhaled. I was mad, he said. Felt like you took the ugliest picture you could find and hung it up for everyone to see. I swallowed. I didn't use your name, I said, or mine. I know, he replied, but I knew. He leaned on the workbench, wrist brace awkward against the wood. I heard you talk about your clients, he said, about their dads, how some of them never say anything because that's how they were raised. sounded familiar. He almost smiled. I didn't like that, he added. What part? I asked. The part where I recognized myself, he said. We stood in that for a moment. I thought if I doubled down, he continued, if I said I shouldn't have told you I was proud, it would make you shut up about it, about me. He shook his head. That was stupid, he said, and cruel. I looked at him. You used the word cruel, I said. He snorted. I listen when people talk, you know, he said. You're not the only one with ears. I laughed softly. He shifted his weight. That night, in the parking lot, he said, I didn't say it because of the crowd, or your mother. I said it because I meant it. Hearing you up there, seeing all those people, I thought, damn, she really did something. My throat tightened. Then why I started? Because I got scared, he cut in. Scared that now you'd have proof I wasn't that bad? That I'd given you what you wanted and you'd stop? I don't know. Looking, figuring things out. He grimaced. That doesn't make sense, he said, even in my own head. It kind of does, I said quietly, if you're used to control. He winced like I'd poked a bruise. I'm trying to get used to not controlling, he said. We let that sit. I'm not asking you to say it again, I said after a moment. I'm not here to collect. I'm proud of you like a punch card. He nodded. Good, he said, because I still don't like being told what to say. I rolled my eyes. But, he added, I am sorry for taking it back. That was low, even for me. My eyes burned. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. He shifted again, uncomfortable. I still don't love the idea of you talking about us on that podcast, he said. But I get now, you're not doing it to hurt us. You're doing it because other people don't have rooms like this. He gestured around at the garage. Places to talk, he said. People to listen. Yeah, I said. Something like that. He picked up a rag, then put it back down. You're good at it, he said. The talking, the helping. I smiled. I know, I replied. He snorted. Listen to you, he said. Don't even need me anymore. I took a breath. That's the point, Dad, I said gently. I wanted your pride. I still do, but I can't have my whole life depend on whether you give it or take it away. He nodded slowly. Probably for the best, he said. I'm not consistent. We both laughed. He looked at me. You turned out okay, you know, he said. Better than okay. It wasn't, I'm proud of you. Not in so many words. But this time, I didn't translate it for him. I translated it for me. Thanks, I said. We walked back into the house. In the living room, Mom handed him a mug of hot chocolate. You two done hiding in the garage? She asked. Just talking, he said. She raised an eyebrow. Good talking? She asked. He glanced at me. Real talking, he said. Later, back in my apartment, I lay in bed and thought about all the versions of proud I'd chased. The loud, cinematic one. The whispered one. The rescinded one. This new version, in the garage, was smaller, less dramatic, less about erasing the past, and more about acknowledging it. I opened my phone and wrote a note to myself. My father's pride is not a trophy I either hold or drop. It's one weather report in a much bigger climate. I can be proud of me, even when he's still learning how. The next time I recorded an episode, I told the story. Not to humiliate him, to tell the truth. I said, sometimes a parent finally says, I'm proud of you, and then takes it back. That hurts. It feels like being dropped from a great height. But here's the other truth. Their words are data points, not definitions. They tell you where they are on their journey, not where you are on yours. If you're waiting for a sentence that may never come, or that might come and go, you're allowed to give it to yourself. You're allowed to say, "I'm proud of me," and mean it, even if they never do. Even if they do, and then change their mind. Their ambivalence doesn't cancel your worth. When I hit upload, my hands shook a little. Not from fear, from the weight of doing something 12-year-old me never could have imagined. Telling the story without begging anyone to revise it. That night, my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Heard the new episode. Not sure I like being the bad guy. But you sounded smart. People need that. I stared at it. Then I wrote back, "Thanks. I'm proud of me too." I didn't wait for his response. For the first time, the sentence felt whole in my mouth without his permission. And somewhere under the ache, under the history, under all the almosts that felt like a beginning,